Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Bryce from Victims to Victors here, where we talk about our stories from triumph, from trouble, storms, and problems in our lives, and how we've overcome it, so you can know that you're not alone, and you too can become a victor. Today, we have as an amazing guest my personal mentor, which is an amazing guy. I was, I was, I was so like, I was like, oh my God, he's a Marine. He's like an officer. I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna be amazing. And then because you hear in the movies like Marines are hard charged and everything's good. And then I get on the phone with him and he's like, hey, how you doing? I'm just like, what? Where's this aggression? Where's the hoorah and all this stuff? It's completely different than what I expected, but nothing but the best to say with my guest today, Garth Massey. Colonel Massey, how are you doing today, sir?
I'm doing well. I'm glad to be here, and I love what you're doing. I love what you're trying to put together, both in your workshops and on this podcast. So
Yes, sir.
Happy to be part of it.
Thank you. And man, like I said, like I heard of so there was two programs I was going for, like I was telling you before. One program that they were just pushing out, and then the other was yourself. And there were a bunch of SEALs talking. They're like, hey, you know what? When we were going down and we were rolling down the streets with the Army, it was good. Like you knew you got solid people, ready to do their job. But then when we were with the Marines, it was like a machine. These guys were squared away the whole time. The Army, they were like, more talking, more shooting the shit, talking about their mom and the girl back home. But the Marines were looking and they were ready and they just wanted it. And I was just like, said enough, say less. I want that guy, just because like, man, like if I want to change my life.
Well, I think what you're missing here for anybody who's listening in or watching, I mean, what he's talking about is we have a leadership development program, and it's been a year and a half or so since you signed up.
Yes,
But you didn't have this, victims to victors. You had the mindset, you had the heart. I think you were unemployed at the time.
Yes, sir.
Yes. And scraping together money for the program, and we threw in a bunch of extra coaching because, frankly, you got a great story. But what we talked about was laying the foundations to get up, which is why I love your the podcast and the thing that we're doing now, right? Like, and the thing that makes the Marines great is they focus on culture, which just is people. Like they focus on people. Now, the part that they focus on is the unrestrained aggression in a time of conflict. They focus on preparation for the battlefield. They focus on looking at things from other people's perspective, so they don't get, just shellacked when they walk into the fight, right? Like they have an opportunity to look at, okay, well, what's likely to happen next, right? And they don't lie to themselves. In fact, they go out of their way to call each other out and to be honest and to be open to the critical feedback you need to hear, because most organizations are just lying. They pander to the people that they work with. They tell them how wonderful they are. They give them high fives. Maybe they even send out bonus dollars, but they're not giving any actual feedback. And so if you think about it, if you're hanging with somebody who all the time is just like smoke and mirrors, right, and just blowing happiness at you, it gets old like really quick, and frankly it doesn't ring true. And so there's something in our human systems that make that sound like the blue pill in the Matrix. Like, you just go, nah, this is not right, like something's wrong, I gotta, and if you have somebody who's willing to hold you accountable, who's willing to call you out, who's willing to say, no, you got to get up and do the work, and all the complaining and all the hiding and all the I'll do it when or if the situation were, like, all that's BS. And the second you take ownership, the second you take responsibility, what you're really doing is building your own personal resilience and making yourself harder, but you're also accepting that our place in life is struggle. And by accepting the struggle and by being willing to do the work, you grow. And Marines, man, they shove that down your throat. If you don't think you're going to struggle, they'll take you outside and make you struggle. And if you think you're good, they'll find a way for you to be bad. And if you think you're fast, they'll make you slow. Like, you're too big, they cut your food. You're too small, they overfeed you. Like, they are looking to shape you back in the image of what they need to win on the battlefield. in my company, Command Ready, the whole reason we made programs like the one you signed up for is to get you up off your feet or off the ground on your feet. Like we want to get you up, and we do that by understanding our foundation, right? Something you understand you've written about and you've talked about a lot, and I'm sure your other guests talk about a lot.
Most
It's
definitely.
it's stop the lies. It's called cognitive dissonance when you start studying this stuff, and it's like, I want to be here and I'm over here, so you just ignore this one. And so we just talk about like how great life's going to be when I win the lotto. And I talk about the boats I'm going to buy and the steaks I'm going to eat and the house I'm going to live in and the girls that I'm going to marry and all this nonsense. But you don't talk about how you're going to have good fiscal policy or how you're going to study or how you're going to make yourself right. So there's this
Yeah.
separation between what we want to have and the
Mhm.
work that we're doing. And we know we're living a lie. And so we
Mhm.
feel false and our world feels false and we feel disconnected, and you just get further and further, and then you're ashamed of yourself. And I think, frankly, I don't know about up in Canada, but down in America, like we struggle with shame and not having it, but not admitting that we have it. Like think about this, right?
That
Like
makes
when
sense.
you are wrong, the
Mhm.
best thing you can do is admit you're wrong and feel bad about it. It's okay. Like embrace that feeling. You don't have to you don't have to roll around it until you get all pruny from it, right? But acknowledge that you did something wrong.
Mhm.
Allow yourself to recognize that you can feel bad about it and be ashamed of yourself, and then fix it.
True.
But what most
But that's
people
the
do
hard
is
part, though.
the hard part is admitting you were
Admitting
wrong and,
admitting
and
it.
being ashamed of it, right?
Yeah.
So we
I know from
justify
my
it.
sorry.
No, go.
Oh, yeah. So like for myself, like before I was like, like I would always just sit back and I would actually just dwell in the bad decisions and dwell in, okay, I heard a lot of people and oh my gosh, I did this and I've done this and I've done this and just sitting in it rather than saying, okay, I did it. That's bad. That's not good. That's not who I want to be. That's not who I want my kids to look at. But then this is where I want to get to. These are the steps I need to go.
Right.
And for me, it was like I don't know why. Like not that I couldn't do it myself, but it was difficult. And then I got into the program. We talked a lot, and it was just bouncing ideas off. And you're like, no, okay, probably not. Probably go back to work. Probably do this. And it wasn't like in a no, you gotta. It was just like, what do you think about this? And I was just like, yeah, that sounds a good about right. Yeah. And it was really just bouncing ideas off of somebody that is going to say, yeah, okay, good job, but then now what? Like, what are you going to do now? You're just going to be, fine with that pat on the back, or you're going to press forward.
Right.
And we jumped ahead a little bit. I just want to give a little background into who you are, and then we get back into that, just because why not talk about where you from, man? The foundation of what made the Colonel, like godly.
Well,
And quite frankly, I brag quite a bit about my friend was like, oh, I know this person. I'm like, I got a Colonel on my phone. Like, what do you got? And it's pretty much my trump card to being cool. So just thank you.
nice. Well, I don't know if it helps you be any cooler. At some point, I just get
Most
older.
definitely, it definitely does. I'm telling you. So man,
My background. So I was born and raised in Alaska, outside of Anchorage, up in a
I
little
was gonna complain
cabin.
about how
At
cold
one
we
point.
got, but daggone it, man. You might know a little bit more,
Well, I've crawled through a snowbank or two in my time, but
huh? Most definitely.
yeah, and I can do backstory fast or slow, but the short of it was, I graduated school and I started going to a college and dropped out. Just wasn't for me at the time. I needed an adventure, and I bought a motorcycle,
Right.
and I had $100 in my pocket, and I took off. So I traveled all the way from. At the time I was in Northern California.
Mm.
Because of the school. And then I went north up into Vancouver, headed out to Kelowna over there in British
Right.
Columbia. Beautiful. That's right. And then turned it around, got a job, worked, a little bit here and there, and then worked my way back to the coast and then came down. So I spent about 4 months on the road. I got to San Diego. I had a buck 37 in my pocket. And I went in and bought a cup of coffee because at the time you could get coffee cheap.
Yeah.
And while I was inside, someone stole my tank bag. And my tank bag had this Ziploc bag in it with 10 Susan B. Anthony's. Those are like little US silver dollars. They don't make them anymore. But I had $10 in change that was I can buy a sandwich and go anywhere in the state of California with enough gas, right, on a bike. And they stole it. So it was gone. So I didn't have anything. So the change left over in my pocket, and that's about it. And so I decided to stay in San Diego. Um, you
Good
know,
choice.
it's a much, it's a much longer story, I suppose. But essentially, went and knocked on some doors till I found a place I could stay. Went and read job boards until I found a job I could do. We was doing door to door canvassing for this company. I worked for a medical company, like a research, whatever. And I did that through the summer. Reapplied to school, and then got back into college and got a
What
degree,
were you going to school for?
San Diego State, and I got a degree in speech communications. So,
Hey, hey.
uh, yeah, it's one of those, like, what does this degree even get you to? I mean, I wasn't interested into going any kind of journalism, but in my sophomore year, I got recruited, would be a bad word, but by some friends, and I joined the United States Marine Corps. And the way you do it through college to go to the officer commissioning program, you in between your school semesters in the summer, you go back to what's called officer candidate school. So I went back between my junior and senior year, loved it. It was
Why the Marines, or was it just because your friends were going there, or is it was it
so the other three
specific
services.
reason?
Yeah, no, the other three services. I was dating this girl whom I married, and her
Okay,
dad was
hey.
a Navy. He was a Navy guy, and so he was doing the reserves at the time. And I'm like, man, what a great deal! Like one weekend a month, you're just kind of hanging out. He drives ships, like. So I looked at the Navy, and then subsequently the Army, and they require you go to 2 years of military training classes. So they call it ROTC, and Reserve Officer Training something. It's been a while, I forget, but ROTC. And I was a junior at that time, and that would have meant having to do another year of college
Jeez, yeah,
just to finish their commissioning programs. The Marine Corps was the only one that I knew of that would allow you to join just with a degree, and you didn't have to do their ROTC program.
yeah.
All you had to do was survive 10 weeks in Quantico,
Nice. 10
Virginia.
weeks, nothing bad, nothing. That's
That's
easy.
right. Yeah, so I did that. So I went and did my 10 weeks straight, came back, graduated one semester later, and then commissioned. And then went back to Quantico and went through basic training. So since then, it's been 25 years now in the military. Um, Active duty at first for a while, then I got off. I've got 4 years, just shy of 4 years of activation, like combat tours, and I just finished a year down in New Orleans, which
So
is
4 years that you were overseas, or just 4 years that you were active?
no. So I was active, then I joined the reserves, and then I have been activated to do deployments to Iraq,
Okay.
Africa, and New Orleans.
Africa.
So yeah, yeah.
What?
I did
Y'all
7 months in
active?
Djibouti, Africa.
Wow,
Um,
that must have been fun.
it's hot. It's I can tell you what 128 feels like, and it ain't nice. Yeah,
Jeez. Did you have to like have all your kid on in that heat?
yeah.
Or was it just
Sometimes it's
jeez.
it speaks to the testament of the Marine Corps a little bit. Like, right. So these guys would guard the gate, and they would wear the full battle rattle. They got the sappy plate carriers on, sappy plates in. They got the helmet. They got neck scars. They got weapons, ammo, all this stuff. And they're standing guard in a tower above the desert. It's in the 115s to 120 somethings daily, and they would do 14 days straight on the tower. Right. I mean, they're rotating and they get breaks and they have water and stuff, but you're up there and you're sweating and it's hard. And then at the end of that, they'd go into the quick reaction lot in their unit, and they'd spend 2 straight days, 24/7, armed, ready to go. And in the quick reaction lot, if anything went wrong, those were the first guys you're going to call to be ready to respond. Right.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, they got 2 days off. Um, but in those 2 days off, we had to train, right? Like we can't allow them just to attrit over the whole 7 months. So being the benevolent guy that I am, I took one of those 2 days off and just said, okay, that's a training day. So 14 days on the wire, 2 days in the quick reaction, and then one day out on a live fire range somewhere slinging lead. And then we let them have one day off. And then the whole cycle would start again.
And then you go back and do
Right.
the
Yeah.
whole thing. Golly. So
But
when
I
they
mean,
say the Marines are the toughest
that's
guys, that's
life,
pretty.
right? Like there are things that must be done, and
Yes.
there are edges that you got to keep sharp, and there is work to do, and you need both people to say get up as much as you need people to do the getting up. And I've heard in training, like when you're out running or doing like a fitness thing and you're like, oh, I'm done. I'm exhausted. I can't go any farther.
Mhm.
Technically, you're at about 30% of your max.
Don't say that because I'm about to run tonight and I don't want to hear that one.
When you get tired, when you're done, when you feel like giving up, like you haven't even begun yet. And that's why those movies like Rocky and, all the big fight movies, whatever, they resonate because we see him crawl up off the mat and we think, oh, that could be me. The truth is, yeah, it absolutely could be you.
Yeah.
Except for what's going on in your headspace, right? Like the way to tap into that is you got to be able to get out of your own way. And again, that's cognitive dissonance. Again, you have to understand, what are you working towards? You have to be honest about where you are. And if you're not honest about those two things,
Doesn't matter.
it doesn't. I mean, yeah,
So true.
it's everything else made up.
Like I've definitely agree with that. Is like if you're not and not just real like, oh, I'm here. No, like into the nitty gritty. Like, where are you? You know what I mean? Because if you could be like, sugarcoating real, but you're not getting into that cake. You're not getting into the real meat of it unless you sit down with yourself by yourself and just be like, man, where am I? How far down the hole am I? And then
the part that people get wrong though is they think that to be honest, you got to be mean. To give good feedback, right? You got to be a little bit cruel. You got to be a little bit tough.
Yeah.
I think it's the opposite word. I think to be honest and to give feedback, you got to love. And if you want to help somebody and be honest about where they're at, you got to be willing and able to be grateful for things. Like, and hoorah, Marine Corps, right? We're not supposed to say things about love or, whatever, but it's real, right? And I can't help other people if I don't A, respect myself, and B, am willing love something enough to want to make things around us better. I heard it put once, like, and I agree with this. I'm totally sick of people telling me what they're against. Whether it's against the bad things in your life or it's against some, in America right now, against political parties or against some ideal or against, like, that's worthless to me. You can tell me all day what you're against.
Yeah.
If you can't tell me what you are for,
Yeah.
I got nothing. Like, if you can't describe to me what it is you believe in, but all you do is tear apart everybody else's tower, like, give me a break. Tell me what you believe in. Tell me what you stand for. That is a discussion that can then go to passion. That is a discussion that can go to love. That is a discussion that you can have on gratitude, right? I like helping people. I love seeing success stories. I like when people take accountability for their own lives. The best part about talking to you, and the reason we ended up sticking around and calling, is because when I would talk to you, you would reflect, you would try, you would apply, right? And when you were done doing all those things, you could see the slow incremental growth. And it didn't have to be this
very slow sometimes.
but that's life, right? Like, we think it's going to be, what is we think we're caterpillars, right? I don't know why, but we think we're caterpillars. We think we're cruising around doing our thing, right? And then one day we put a cocoon around ourselves. We go to college, we, take some course, we do something. And we think when we come out of that, all I'm saying is that the attitude that we can go into a cocoon and come out and reemerge as something different, I don't know that that's how it works. I think we make choices today and it causes an incremental shift, a 1 degree change.
So true.
And that 1 degree change over miles is a big deal.
So true.
Yeah.
It's we got to appreciate that 1 degree. It's not that like you got to see it and you got to appreciate it, because if you just like go on and just like, okay, yeah, things are changing, you got to like, I believe you got to really appreciate it, because if not, like at the beginning, like, 5 feet out, you still don't really see a change. It's that mile out. It's that 2 miles out. You know what I mean? Like, I seen Tony Robbins say, we overestimate what we can do in a year, but then underestimate what we can do in 5 years. And it's that mindset, like, hey, you know what? You can have big dreams, but just that little bit, the first that first couple steps, the first month, the first 2 months, the first 6 months, and then like you said you had 10 weeks of basic training, right? Boot camp, or it wasn't the first day, right? It wasn't the first day you're like, I'm a Marine. Hey, thank you. Right? It was after that beautiful time, I'm sure it was.
And they have the advantage of shaving your head. and dressing you the way they want you to dress and telling you what time to wake up and telling you how fast to, to move and when to eat and what to eat. And like, where else do you get that in your life? I mean, they can afford to do it in 10 weeks in something that would take you decades, because that intentionality on that 1 degree change, like, everybody else around you is going to be like, why are you doing that? Why are you waking up 30 minutes earlier and drinking your coffee and reading a book every morning? Why are you doing it? What a waste of time. Sleep in, get your rest. Like, everyone is going to tell you to take the easy road because they want company.
But I mentioned this, we were on the phone, like what I really want to talk to you about. And it comes down to that, and it's because when things are going right, right, when the plans are moving and flowing, and I've watched movies, and again, a civilian, I don't know nothing. You watch movies, and every mission goes great until that one happens. And I want like, I'm sure you've seen the movie, what is it, Black Hawk Down?
Sure.
It's a huge movie, and there's that one moment, that 1 second, that call comes over the radio, and a soldier has died. And you, as the leader in the, back in the command center, or obviously those leaders on the ground right there, in the movie it showed you got 30 seconds of like, oh my God, this is what happened, right? You got punched in your face, you got a divorce, you got fired, you broke your leg, you got paralyzed. But then, I was talking to Pierce, who was an Army Ranger, been overseas, and he was explaining all this stuff.
Sure.
And he said that time is really not that time. It's not a 30-second time. It's not a minute time the movies show you. It's now. Because if we do not keep going, if we do not build up that fire, if we do not, fire back an enemy, there's going to be more. And in life, if you get a divorce and then you just like, oh man, let me just go to the bar, let me sip that bottle, let me, I'm paralyzed, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? I can't do nothing. If we sit in that moment, it will hurt us, and it will harm us. And my question to you is, as a leader, sending guys out, and obviously sometimes you were one of the guys that were sent out. What does that do to your head when that call happens, that thing happens?
I like that moment. I don't mean to make it sound bizarre, but I was the guy who studied first aid so that if I saw a car wreck, I could run and be the first one there. I was the guy that, I was a lifeguard in college, because you'd see people, swimming and having trouble, and then you get to go run out and help them. I was looking for that stuff. I believe in sort of that just calm professionalism under fire. So I look for places where they need people who are calm. I would tell you, most emergency situations you see, there's plenty of people spazzing out. I just never wanted to be that guy. And I'm certain that I've overreacted to many of things. I mean, I got kids. I know I've overreacted to some stuff. But think about who you want to be, and then be that person. I mean, we're covering a ton of ground, but it's like a life philosophy thing, right? Like, philosophy is not about reading some poet or some dead Greek, from 2,000 years ago. Yeah. It's a way of being. It's how you see yourself in your life. So if you see yourself and your life as a victim, then you're a victim. I mean, you did it. You visualized it. You made it happen. I mean, we talked 1 degree changes. You can make 1 degree changes in a bad place too. I can go land navving and have my compass off 1 degree and walk far enough and not only be at the wrong place, but be someplace bad. I've made mistakes where I went the wrong way because of overconfidence or arrogance or, whatever. And I end up someplace bad. And then you got to deal with it, which, again, honest, brutal feedback is real helpful in those cases. And I'm not talking meanness or bullying. I mean, good, clear, concise, constructive feedback, and then being able to take it and not making it all personal because your feelings are upset, but recognizing I did something, I should not have done it, and here's how I'm gonna get out of it. But I mean, to answer your question, like, I think it's a mindset. I think you need to spend time, people should spend time figuring out who they want to be, who their examples are, who they want to emulate, right? And then then be that person. And oh, by the way, no one person has all the traits of what you want to be. I mean, there are things about you I admire. And there are things in our conversation that I've heard that I'm like, I got to get back on that. Bryce got to figure it out. I got to go do that too. Right. Like there are things in everyone I see where I'm like, that is something they're better than me at. And I try and find those things because that is at the very foundation, the beginning of humility. And not that I have any, but if I wasn't trying, I know I would have, big problems. Right. So, you talk about, getting up this whole, I mean, we're all over the board. We're talking about all kinds of stuff, but when bullets start flying or when somebody gets hurt or when you have that life thing, right? Like, let's make it a non-blowing up death moment. Like you lose your job. There's a lot of that going on right now. Companies are struggling. The nation is struggling. Your nation is watching, I guess. Right. But I got there's a lot of Canadian police force actually that I'm connected with because of the work we do with law enforcement. And I would tell you this, when you lose your job, something very plain and simple that is probably going to happen to everybody out there.
Yep.
The most important thing you need to do the next day is put on pants. Like too many people lose their job and then lay in bed and they're like, well, I don't have to go to work. I guess I just lay here. Bull. Like get up, put your pants on. And I'm not talking about your pajama bottoms and your flip flops. I mean, put on a pair of trousers so you feel like you're going to work and then treat finding a job like your job.
Yep.
And some days your job is going to be frustrating and not fulfilling, but you got to treat it like a job. Well, okay, go back to the same thing. Like when bullets are flying, same thing. We get ourselves in these spots and people are slinging rounds at you. That is the wrong time to be like, oh, wait, now I'm scared. Perhaps I should just lock it down. And I mean, what? Like you would not want to be with anybody. I mean, that's the clearest example, right? You get in a firefight and someone goes, I'm good. Right. And they leave. No, that is the time to lock your shield and point your spear and face the enemy with a broad chest and a bold spirit. Like that's what you've got to work towards.
True.
That doesn't mean you always have to fight. Pick your battles. Some days toss your shield, get out of there. But you want to be with people who recognize that if it's go time, then go. And if it's not go time, well, then talk about everything you want to talk about. But put your pants on. I mean, get up, dress for the game you're playing.
So true.
So true. And I don't know. I mean, I got to go back and listen to some more of your episodes because if that's not a reoccurring theme, I'll eat my hat, I guess. But
yeah, pretty much everybody said from the guy that's been 18 years in prison to the guy that was paralyzed to from driving too fast on a motorcycle. They all said, "Hey, you know what? You got to realize where you are, but you don't stop going. You can't stop. The moment you stop, you essentially die, right?" And everybody said the same thing, right? Like the transition is hard from walking down the street. Pierce. He was talking about one time he got ambushed and like there's bullets flying all over the place. And you're just like, gee, golly, right? But you don't sit around and just like, wow, this is pretty cool. Like you gotta, your mind is already, I gotta go. But in the civilian world, if you lose your job, it's just like, well,
right.
All right. Well, it's just like, no, this is your ambush time. This is your time to be like, shit, I gotta get going. I gotta push.
There is a fundamental difference between who you are and things that happen to you.
So true.
Right. I've lost a job. I got fired and I started a company so that can't happen again. Right. But I got fired, because of circumstances. I mean, everyone has a story, right? But circumstances outside my control, and without getting into too much trouble, the company was breaking the law. And I went to the CEO and I called him out on it. And he walked me out of the office and was like, you got to come back up here to the headquarters and we have to talk. Make sure you get on my schedule. I'll see you in a week. No problem. I'll be right back. And then the next morning, 7 a.m., I wasn't fired. Technically, they chose to eliminate the position because it was a redundancy. They no longer, this other guy was going to cover the job. So I was reduced, right? I was a reduction in force. But it was literally 12 hours after, saying, hey, you guys we're lying on our publicly reported company numbers. About a year later, the SEC investigation started, and they're starting to go to jail. And I mean, it's
They went
been
to jail.
almost.
Wow.
Oh yeah, I mean, this was a yeah, it's a big deal. I mean, it was all over news, which is why I don't really want to say where, but yeah, the founding company and the managing directors. I'll just throw this out there: if you not the parent company that owned us and was kind of driving this, if you get to a place where your 4 managing directors have 5 private jets,
Might want to start looking around. Put your
right?
resume
Like,
somewhere else.
what's the the good old country boy comedian guy? Like, there's your sign, right? Well, there was a sign. Bad things are happening, and yeah. So there, there is an ongoing current investigation of the SEC, and it's been going for, I don't know, 6 years now. Like, I mean,
Oh wow.
courts take a long time, especially in some of these sort of finance crimes that are tougher to. I mean, there's no smoke and gun, right? Like, it's about rabbit holes and stuff. Anyway, the moral of all that is to say bad stuff happens to you, but there's a huge, huge difference between who you are and what's happening to you.
Mm.
Right. I mean, Joseph Campbell, the guy who wrote The Hero's Journey, which is a cool thing for people to check out who like life
Mm.
and like understanding how humans work. He used to say, if you see a poisonous snake, you can't wish that there was no such thing as poisonous snakes. That's stupid.
Yeah.
Right. Like, if there's a poisonous snake in front of you, you can't just wish that you lived in a world where all this wasn't. It's not helping you at all. Better to say, okay, well, there's a poisonous snake, and you cut its head off, because that's the situation you're in, and all the wishful thinking in the world doesn't change the fact that poisonous snakes exist. Now I'm paraphrasing a lot, but
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. Like,
The truth.
your story, my story, all of it. Like, you either accept that things are going to happen to you and you deal with it, which is about building up your resiliency, or you suffer from it. And then when you're wallowing and you're unhappy and you haven't moved the needle on your life, it's cool, but that's on you. Like, you own that.
So true. So true. I remember when I think it was like our first or second conversation, you're like, hey, so what do you want to do with your life? So on and so forth. And I was just like, I've always wanted to be in the military, this, that, and the other. You're like, okay, that was back then. Now what are you
Yeah.
going to do? And I was like, but, I wanted to be in the military. I signed the papers, and you're like, okay. Right. But I was wallowing in it. I was sitting in it for a really long time. And then because I sat in it, I got angry. And then, unfortunately, some people had to deal with my anger. It wasn't good for them. But, and it's really just sitting down with yourself and saying, hey, you know what, this is where I am, and being real. And, some people, they don't see a way though. You know what I mean? Like, they don't, it's like,
It's hard.
where I was living is like, I don't see it. Like, I don't see when I'm in a hole, I don't see it. Like, where I was living was the hood. There's a elementary school, a high school, a little community college, a grocery store, and a hospital. You did not have to leave. There's a little dollar store there, like bank. Everything you needed was right there. Like, some people just couldn't find the way out. They just couldn't see it. There was roads all over the place. They couldn't.
You know what I think was one of the big things when we met that got you from unemployed to employed, right, to a sense of worth. And I remember you telling me your wife's reaction when you got that job. And it's not like it was a great paying job. It was a stepping stone job. But I remember the way you described it. And you know what I honestly think was your trick? What really pushed you? And I don't know, man. I mean, I love watching your story, but I'm not living your story. But it was those walks. And it was if you follow Bryce at all on Instagram, he used to. I don't know if you still do it. I haven't seen it in a while. He used to go for these late night walks. And I think it's because you're, this martial arts tough guy and you were out vigilanting up the neighborhoods. But he would walk, and then you would do these sort of monologues, and you would talk to yourself, or you would talk to your Instagram account, and you were moving, right? Like, your brain cannot get out of being stuck in your own drama, problem, situation, thing until you move forward, right? And we got a saying in the military, like, false motivation leads to real motivation. And so sometimes you got to do a little cheerleading, but standing in front of a mirror giving yourself belief statements is not only comical, but nobody's going to do that. But if you go for a walk,
Yeah.
right? Then your walks get longer. Then you see more. Then you have more quiet time where instead of letting the news and your phone and all this other nonsense like fill your headspace with whatever it wants you to be thinking about, you have time to think about what you want to think about. And when you do that, you can get clarity on your goals, your life, your ambitions, what you're proud of. And I'm telling you, man, I've watched for a couple of years now your little monologue videos as you're walking. That is action. It's small, it's tiny, it's a 1% change, but it's action. And it's action in a direction that allows you to find your purpose, your direction, the next step. That's all you need. It's just the next thing. You don't need perfect or solved.
True.
I mean, hell, it ain't over till you're dead, right? So
That's true.
it is about the incremental steps. So when you would go out and you would walk, I go out and walk, or we go and we work out, or we do something that gives our bodies motion. Once our body's in motion, then our mind picks up pace so that we don't trip over and fall on our faces. Once our mind picks up the pace, we start thinking about new opportunities, new solutions, new ways out. You got to build your own momentum is what I'm trying to say.
And this is a little side note. Like I watched I like horses. I'm a city guy, likes horses. I don't know. And this one guy, this horse guy, was saying that when horses are kept in a stall, their health deteriorates because their hooves are connected to their heart. And the more they walk, the more they run, the more they're able to get out there and gallop and trot and whatever, do their thing, the more their heart pumps and they're able to move better, and they're just become healthier animals. And it goes to the same thing. It's like if we just sit at home, watch the TV, watch the news, watch these YouTube influencer people, guys,
watch the
podcast, and you just sit there and you pack on a little, Ben and Jerry's is always good. You sit there and you just start getting bigger, and then your emotion just goes down the toilet, and it's just like you're just sitting there like, oh my gosh, woe was me type of thing. Your health goes, your vision goes, you can't see really what's going on. And it's really just getting up there and being a social person. We're social creatures. God made us to interact with people. But if you're just sitting there, you're going to sit in your own.
Yeah, but look where we're at, right? So we got this virus pandemic that's caused a health hysteria, which is very different from a pandemic. So we are getting hysterical about things that are outside our control instead of controlling things that we could be, right? We could be living healthier. We could follow simple common sense stuff, but we're looking for the Lone Ranger to ride up with a silver bullet and save us. Well, I mean, if you've made it this far in this particular podcast, I don't think you're that person. You better not be, because you'll never become a victor and get the other half of your pseudonym there unless you are able to recognize there is no silver bullet. It's you. It's you. The thing. I mean, here in America, what we need right now, we don't need a microphone anymore. We need a mirror. I mean, every single leader out there needs a mirror. Look in the mirror. There's something you can work on, I assure you, because I have things I need to work on.
Most definitely.
Right? And don't be too eager. But we have places that we could improve. And if you're not working on that stuff, come on. Like you don't have a leg to stand on to tell somebody else how they should be living if you're not willing to look in your own mirror. Oh. And that's what builds your momentum. That's what sets micro stuff for you. And so that's why I loved, that you were out walking the streets. Do it. Walk the streets. Be restless. Whether you're talking to somebody else or not, doesn't matter. You're just moving, and in the motion, your body builds up energy, and we get something out of that. You got to go outdoors. You got to go outside. And you're right. Elephants are the same way too. They're so big, their heart can't pump blood all the way through their bodies. So they have they have sacs, like little pads on their feet. And when they walk, they compress the pads, and that pushes blood throughout the rest of their body. And so their heart is actually tied to the base of their feet. And it's all connected. Like if an elephant stops walking, it will literally die because I mean, they can go a little while, right? Not like 5 minutes, but if an elephant is not walking, its circulation is off to most of its body, and it'll
I
atrophy and
mean,
die.
it's just like us too, right? Like my somebody I know was on PSW, and they were working with older people in old age homes. They just sat around all day. They just did nothing. They got bed sores. They get all this stuff, and it's just like we gotta move, man. We are meant to move forward. If I'm a Bible thumper, and in the Bible it says that we're supposed to move. We're supposed to go to the world, right? And the Bible says to
Right.
go to the world and preach the gospel. But we're supposed to move. We're not supposed to just stay in one little spot and just be happy and content with where we are. We're supposed to get out there and meet people and change and do things. But when we sit down and just think about just this little bubble, we there's a
So,
problem.
so I would tell you there's one element to that, right? And I agree. In all the studies of people over 100, right, and how you extend life, the motion was everything, but there's one key element at the beginning of that, and that's purpose. Like
Yeah,
just moving is a great way to start,
facts.
but while you're just moving, you better figure out your purpose. Like some of those older folks, one of the things they would do is they would assign kindergartners that needed to be walked to school. And so these people in this study of elderly folks would be assigned a child, and their job was to be there at the bus stop area, rest stop, whatever, in the morning, and walk them the last half mile or whatever to school.
Wow.
And so the parents would deliver the kids to X spot, and then these grandmas and grandpas, or great grandmas and great grandpas, whatever, they would walk them the rest of the way to the school. They had a purpose. They had to get up. They had to stay healthy. They had to stay mobile because little Johnny or little Susie were going to meet them at that street corner and needed to be walked to school through the city and be safe. And if there was nobody to meet him, this kid would be stuck and not able, right? So that purpose extended their lives by huge numbers, right?
Really?
And we need that too, right? So your guest who was paralyzed, okay, one, you got to accept where you are, take the feedback, and then start to pick. What do you want to do? Do you want to wiggle your toe? Is that physically possible? Well, some of it is just deciding that it's possible. Um, there's a film, I think it's on Netflix. It's called Coming to My Senses by a guy named Aaron Baker. And he was in a motorcycle crash, and he was a quadriplegic. And he tells an amazing story of his recovery. And he's a friend of mine. He does some presentations with me here out in LA. And he can stand. He walked across Death Valley. Now, he is still very much disabled, but he walked across Death Valley pushing one of those Bob jog strollers, the like the baby strollers.
Yeah.
So his was kitted out with about 100 pounds worth of stuff that he needed because he could not walk unaided. So he leans on that, and he walked the 20 miles across Death Valley. It took over a week, and he made a documentary about it.
100 plus pounds.
Well, he had to. I mean, it was his water, it was his food, it was things to stay healthy while he was on the move. And so they filmed it all, and it's called Coming to My Senses. Worth watching. He walked unaided the last 50 feet to his bride when they got married, and it's a cool story. And I mean, he's still in a wheelchair, but he has established a purpose. He works with spine centers and helps people who are recently paralyzed come to grips with where they're at and what they can push forward to. But now, like, he's back riding motorcycles again. Now it's a trike,
Fair, yeah.
And it's got hand control stuff. But if you follow him, the real Aaron Baker, or I'm Aaron Baker, or something like that on Instagram, like, you'll see pictures of him out riding every weekend, and they're having their first baby. I mean, all kinds of good stuff. But that was 20 years of a 1 degree shift in what he calls intentionality. But that 1 degree over 20 years, he's married, he's having his first baby, he's got a small business, he's helping other people. Like, that's purpose.
100%.
And if you're just living your life so that, I got a house, I got a car that's okay, I got a couple friends that I hang with. I mean, arguably some of those people are more hollow and more empty than a lot of the people you talk to who recognize they've struggled and are growing from it.
And that is the truth. I live in a neighborhood that there's a lot of hollow people.
Yeah. I mean, we are not, C.S. Lewis put it together. He called it men without chests, right? And not as a sexist thing, but just as a men without chest. They are people whose ideas are not connected, or their intellect, right, are not connected with their feelings. And, for the sake of the argument, he used feelings as your gut, right? So in your gut, you have this sense of right and wrong and things that should be. And in your head, you have your science and your reason and your intellect, right?
Mhm.
And the connecting tube between the two is your chest. Your chest gives you words like honor and character and justice and courage and prudence and knowledge. And it's all the things that connect how you feel with what you think, right?
Okay.
And our societies are slowly stripping away all those things. I mean, if someone came and talked about honor, yeah, but look at it. I mean, if you talked about honor, love, gratitude, people kind of roll their eyes and they're like, "Oh, come on,
Yeah.
I don't want to get,
They know how to talk about that stuff. Yeah.
right?" So we took away all the words that you could use to connect yourself to something so much bigger and to have a file between what you think and how you feel and so that you could understand it. And we did it because it's easy to do. I can make fun of the word honor. It's easy, right? You just start picking apart like, well, what's really honorable? And then, oh, that trait, well, that person has that trait and they weren't honorable at this time. So, obviously they're not a good example to follow. And, we can tease and we can mock and we can use like debate logic to kind of make fun of it all. So we removed all these words. So we don't talk about things like the virtues anymore. We don't talk about prudence, which is the use of reason to understand what you believe, or temperance, which is like slow your roll a little bit. Like you don't have to be outraged at everything you see. Like stuff just happens and
Yeah.
recognize the coming and goings of it. We don't talk about justice, not what real
Oh,
justice is.
we do. Come on now.
Well, we use the word, my friend, but
Word
we do
justice,
not
but not
talk about justice. Right?
facts. Yeah.
Where are we going? Back to might makes right? I mean, it took us 2,000 years to get away from that shit. And we're going back to
Word
might makes
justice.
right. I
Very
have the
true.
microphone. I have the big stick. You will do what I say. Is that the world we want to live in? Because that's not justice for a society. That's justice for somebody with better genes. And I want to be on your team because you're a big, strong guy, but
I know.
like we can't all be on the same team in that kind of mindset because somebody's going to get paid if that's how we want to live, right? And then courage is the last one, right? That not just physical courage, but moral courage, like the willingness to do right, not to be seen doing it, not to have people call you out, not to have like accolades, like that's false.
Yep.
But the four cardinal virtues, temperance, prudence, justice, and courage, all of that wrapped in humility, that's powerful stuff.
Powerful. Powerful.
But we don't talk about that.
No.
That's dangerous words. You can't say that stuff, right? So we take that away. So what C.S. Lewis said was that's ripping the connective tissue out. And in his illustration, that was pulling our chests away.
Hmm.
So there is nothing connecting what we think with what we feel. We can't articulate our feelings because we have no chest. So we're living in this world where we are men without chests. We cannot talk about who we want to be or why.
Hmm.
And I would tell you that leaves us all victims of something. Like we fall prey to anybody who's willing to come along and just tell us what to do. And that's pitiful.
Yeah.
Like,
That's especially the media has everybody at in just like they're doing this and they're doing this and everybody's an enemy and everybody's horrible and everybody's terrible and you should be afraid and
Sure.
the government's here to protect you and it's just like come on, man. Like
sure. Anytime they tell you you should be afraid, it's time all your antennas should go up. I mean, why are you telling me I should be afraid? I talked to somebody this morning and she said, "How you doing?" I said, "I'm living the dream."
Facts.
And she goes, "Oh, yeah, I wish I was living the dream." And I'm like, "Well, why don't you?" And she's like, "Oh, the world, there's a lot going on." And I'm, I don't know about you. I checked this morning, like my family's good, right? And it's been, I don't know, my entire life since somebody at the White House called me for a political decision. Like, right? Like, I mean, there are bad things happening to people right now, and it's a shame.
100%.
But I don't have to live some of them because somebody got on the news and said, "Oh my gosh, right now there's someone struggling." Well, yeah, duh. People have been struggling for a long time. There has never been a better time in history to be alive, though,
100%.
right? I mean, the only place is not safer. And, to my friends in Chicago, I'm sorry, but their murder rate is off the charts right now. But everywhere else, life is better. Life is safer.
Yeah.
But a safe life without struggle, we're going to forget anything we might have learned, and we're going to go fast. And I don't mean to. It's not a political discussion. The propaganda is everywhere because everyone figured out how to use it, and they're using it. So anytime someone's telling you you better be scared, watch out.
or just better be anything. If you're telling me something that I should be, just ask questions like why should I be scared?
Right.
Why should I look like this? Or why should I do this? You know, when I was younger, I'm mixed. You know, I'm a light skinned brother, looking good as ever. But I never knew my father, but I knew my mom. And so in school, we didn't have a lot of black kids in my school. There was like probably 20. And so I'd go chill with the black kids. But then, my mama raised me with manners and some respect. You know, it's a crazy thing, I know, but I wasn't
That's
allowed
the
to put my
chest.
pants.
That's
I
the
wasn't allowed
chest.
to have my pants below my butt. You know, I wasn't allowed to walk with a limp if my foot wasn't hurting. I wasn't able to call somebody out their name. I wasn't able to cuss in front of older people. I wasn't able to disrespect women. You know, I wasn't able to do this stuff, and I was called whitewashed because
Hmm.
only white people do that stuff. You know, only white people have manners. Only white people. And then I'd go chill with white people, and then white kids, and they're like, they always were scared of me because I was bigger, I was stronger, obviously looked better, but but they were scared of me. They're like, oh yeah, Bryce, do this. You know, like they didn't want to be around because they were intimidated. And so I didn't know where to go. I didn't know what to do. So if anybody was telling me anything, I'd be like, all right, let me do that. And oh, let me do that because I just wanted to fit in. And I
Right.
think that's what's happening a lot right now is like we don't have those words to describe anything anymore. And so we just want to fit in with the loudest microphone, fit in with
Well, you also, yeah, because it makes you feel safe. But that's not, yeah. I mean, it goes back to, though, before the recording hit, you were talking about some of your guests and you're like, well, I don't know what you want me to talk about. And you said, everyone has a story.
everybody.
Everybody has a story. And so here's the thing that gets me, like, you have that story and it's a good one. And you struggled understanding your place and how you fit in the social economic groups. And, this one called you out for not belonging, that one called you out for not belonging. That is happening to everyone.
True.
Everybody. Everybody's got that story. Everybody felt out of place. I mean, uh, we think that because we're going through a struggle,
Mm.
that it's unique in the universe. It's unique to us. It's not unique in the universe. Struggle is what makes good humans. Having to work through something, having to understand where you fit and where you belong. And I mean, I laugh at your former school friends then. I mean, if you were being whitewashed because you had manners, what is that saying? That then their group does not believe in manners at all? Like, are they the opposite? Because now we're back to like, don't tell me what you don't believe and tell me what you do believe.
Yep.
So what is respectful in that mindset? But let's not forget every single person. And I mean, I don't know. I had an epiphany one time. I fly a lot. I used to fly a lot more. And I sit in the airport and I'm super judgy, right? Because of the Marine Corps, because of my own arrogance, because of whatever. And so, when you sit in a large group, and we call it people watching to make it sound nice,
Yeah.
but what we're really doing is we're being super judgy, right? So I was people watching in the airport, and you mentioned faith earlier. And as I'm looking at these people, and I'm like, that person needs to not eat so much fried food, and that look at that person, like they're clearly frazzled and going someplace. I'm trying to make it sound nice. I was thinking horrible things about everybody that walked by,
Most definitely.
and I was mad because something hadn't gone my way, and I was upset, and so I was just looking and judging everybody. And then it occurred to me, every single one of these people is special in God's eyes. Every single one of these people has something that God loves them for. Every one of them.
Hmm.
So if every single person in front of me is loved by God and I'm sitting here judging them and I'm judging them bad, like who's the real problem? And we're back to the mirror, right?
Yeah.
And so I would play this game then when the moment hit me and then in the future, and I don't always get it right. But when I see groups or when I'm people watching, I try and play the game differently. I try and look at them and be like, there is something so special and so amazing about that one person. And I can't see it. So what is it? So I have to look harder. I have to look closer. I have to listen better.
Wow. Yeah.
That's hard to do because you don't get anything from it except the humility to live your life well, And then maybe a little bit of respect for, the fact that other people are all struggling and learning. I mean, these are not new stories. This stuff has been recorded since we were etching things on rock walls and caves. Like, life is about struggle. What's the first cave picture, right? Like, dudes on a hunt with spears, and over in the corners, like that one dead cave stick man, and then the spear sticking out of the creature, and the creature looks like it's still running because the fight ain't over yet. Like, the very first drawings are about struggle. So get in it, but look for the good, and use words that connect your feelings with your head. Like, allow yourself to be smarter, and that, building that foundation. And then once you have that, start moving. Go for a walk, or go for a roll, or go for a surf, or a snowboard, or I don't know, whatever, a one wheel. What you wacky kids doing these days? But do something.
Most definitely got to. I got to say that just before we wrap up and get into one last thing here is, from we started talking till even now, the whole, Marine hard charging, you threw it through the air. You don't look scary. You look like a dude that's going to sit and have a coffee. You talk very well and not like the knuckle dragger, crown eaters everybody talks about. And then I was like, when you look at somebody in the airport and you're paying attention, and what is the thing? Like, have a plan to kill everybody you meet. And I'm expecting this crazy thing. It's just like, no, look at them as God loves everybody. It's just like, God, this is not what I expected from a Marine. But then,
I have a plan. I not. I mean,
there's a plan there, but I still love you.
Yeah,
but it shows that there's depth and breadth to everybody. And you having to be deployed, and sometimes you have that switch, but then you come back to, like, this world, if you will, that's not so much as a prevalent, need, but yet you still have a story, and you still have, like, hey, I got these things that, I've seen these things sometimes and it's not too good, but yet I'm still here. I'm still trying to work it out. I'm still, one of my buddies, he was, on Van Doos, he was up in Quebec and in the military. He went overseas, and he was, the first time I met him was at a Memorial Day, well, our Memorial Day type of thing. And there's fireworks going off, and he was scared shitless. He's a white guy, and he went paralyzed, or he went pale. And I was just like, this guy been to war. Like, this guy's been through some dirt, and he's scared. And he's like, hey, man, you don't know. And you don't know. When you see those people in the airport, when you see those people in the mall, you don't know what's going on with this person. You don't know that this person walking around the mall 40, 50 times doesn't want to go home because they're going to get their ass beat by their husband, or there's a girl and she might get sexually abused. You don't know if there's a drunken, you don't know. And so, like you said, just treat everybody with love and care, and start to have these conversations, and know, hey, you know what? These are not uncommon. In the Bible, we learn that there's nothing uncommon to man, that everything is common. We've been through a lot. And the person that you're looking at, the person, for myself, that was standing in front of me, that was saying certain things that I didn't like, and, I made him understand that I didn't like it. Somebody loves him. And somebody cares about that person. And as long as we live in these parameters, that this is a person, God loves everybody. And as much as you look like some regular guy, there's other stories to you. There's things to you that the world probably will never know, because there's certain things that we can just keep in this little corner here. Because, hey, you know what? We all got stories. We all got that boogeyman in the closet. And, we see these marches in the whole riots and, storming of the Capitol, all these crazy things. But all this stuff is for a reason. There's a reason that each and every one of them are doing what they're doing, and there's a story behind it. And, as a guy yourself that, has a company leading people, and, been a wartime leader, been a leader in companies, and leading the charge, have stories, and pitfalls and struggles, but yet we still keep moving forward. Understand the situation we're in, appreciate it for what it is, take tools, lessons learned from the the storms and the struggles, and then move forward.
Yeah, you're right. I would tell you my daughter is a junior in college now,
Oh, jeez.
and in spite of the fact that I may not inspire you to fear, some of the young lads they're still on the list. So if they're watching, uh,
Definitely. Hey,
but hey, look, all the show in the world. I mean, doesn't do you any good. You got to be able to take action when it's time for action, and the rest of the time, lighten up. we take ourselves way too seriously. Like none of us are that good. It's good. I like what you're doing.
The scariest person I've met in person, he was just a simple native guy, just simple as simple can be. Never like was a drunk, heavily, but when he was sober, normal, like just chill, like you would never know nothing. And then I found out that he was a hitman for a bunch of groups. I was just like, what? You? And everybody's got that little.
I would tell you the people I always watch out for are people who take action. The people who bluster and talk, I mean, it's the same thing, right? So we've been talking about this whole time. People who take action. I am conscious and aware of people who are willing to do what they say, who are willing to describe what's going to happen and then just do it. You watch you watch a lot of conflict videos in my line of business, but you're fine as long as people are still running around peacocking and blustering.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
It's that moment when you meet somebody who's actually a gunfighter, like that person you got to do something about and fast. Right. And it's not about, talking about who's the best first. Like that's a waste of your time. Yeah. Right. So, but you can apply that to a lot of other things. It doesn't have to be about, crime. It can be about life. Right. Be good fast. Be the one in the group of friends that stops talking shit about everybody else around you. Be the one who stops and opens the door, or, just be the one who takes the action and does the things that are morally right and just. Be that person who does not allow themselves to overreact to things because they understand what temperance really is. If you can find that,
straight.
I mean, think about it. Like you've done a lot of bouncing and martial arts and a few other things. Like the guy bragging about how he's going to kick your butt. I can't imagine that's ever the one you were worried about. That's not the guy.
Never.
Right.
Never.
But when you have the quiet one, right.
It's always a short.
The guy who leads with a punch, though, you got to pay attention to him
very quickly.
Right.
And it's normally coming this way. It's normally, going.
All right.
You're down there. I see you.
Yeah. But those are people of action. And that action translates to business. It translates to school. It translates to children. Like there's so much more we can talk about. And I don't want to drag it on too long, but.
For sure, man. Hey, again, thank you for coming on. Thank you for sharing your story and telling us, what you've been through and how you've overcome. Because at the end of the day, just living life and dealing with, the fun stuff. The 10 weeks of beautiful.
10 weeks was easy. I did not know they were paying us. Actually, somebody said something about, direct deposit should have hit. You guys all have a check on like week 3. I didn't know they were paying us. I was doing it for free. It was fun. I had a great time. I loved it. Yeah, I found out they were paying us on like week 4 or 5. Like that's how long it took me to be like, oh, you mean I'm getting money too? I had such a good time. And it was not easy, but it was not hard either. Like it was embrace the suck, go through the struggle, do the, it's just a mindset. Again, philosophy is a way of being. It's not bragging. It's not talking. It's, if you want to be that person, be that person. And then don't waste your time talking about how someday I'm going to have a boat. Like that's goal setting. Do that, but do that in the realm of goal setting. Don't do that in the daydreaming sense of like, oh, I wish, or if only, or as soon as this happens, then I'll be able to. Like, just start.
Just do it.
Get started. And people listening to this show, if they've made it this far, like, great. It's good to hear stories and it's good to hear ideas. Now go start. Pick something of purpose and do that thing.
Most
And then
definitely.
do another one and do another one. And
Man, pick something with purpose and do that thing. I think it's the best way to end, man. Sir, thank you so much
stop.
again. Have yourself a wonderful day.